So this is a custom home that I'm building in Newberry, and we started back in June, so we're about 10 weeks into construction here. And as you can see, my clients are going for a really traditional country style home, and so that's what you see kind of playing out here. And it's about 3,200 square feet, heated and cooled, 4,600 total, 4-bed, 3.5 bath. And the property this home is set on, I mean, just, a beautiful, quintessential country home location. It's about 5.5 acres, and you can see the open field, mixed with all the beautiful oak trees. We're about a mile outside of town, right on County Road 235 in Newberry. And I know my clients are really excited about the setting of this home and its location, and I am too. I mean, whenever the home is finished and you got this driveway pulling up to the house through the oak trees, it's going to be really beautiful. And so because my clients are going for a really traditional country style home in this house, technically this style house is Louisiana French style, it's Acadian style. So, we won big porches, we wanted the house we built up in the air. So we did go with a stem wall foundation on this house. And so that would give it the elevated look, so what we do with the stem wall is we pour a footer and we lay block on top of that footer, and then we fill the stem wall with fill dirt, and we actually wind up pouring a slab up in the air. And so the advantage to this is we're able to elevate the house up off the ground. So back in the day, your traditional country style home would have been built on a crawl space. Well, crawl spaces were phased out about 60-70 years ago for most homes, and almost all houses now in Florida are poured on a slab. So this allows us to still give that same raised, elevated look that traditional country homes would have had. Even in Louisiana with the Acadian style home, very similar situation. Allows us to do that raised, elevated look, but just on a poured concrete slab. And so here you see it all prepped, and of course it was a rainy day today, so you see all the puddles and a little bit of the mud on top of the Visqueen after the slab was prepped. But this is after the footers were poured, blocks laid and buttoned up, stem wall filled with fill dirt, and then prepped with Visqueen and welded wire on top. So this is a couple days into framing. We poured the slab, and the next week we'll start framing on it. And, we got all the walls up here, and we started sheathing the exterior walls. And so here's after most of the trusses have been set. As you'll see, these are most of the larger trusses. Some of these hips and, smaller trusses on the smaller section on the far side of the house are just going to be hand set. But, these are all the trusses that were set with the crane on site. And as you can see, because of the height of this roof, and this is a 12-12 pitch, and 9-12 and 12-12 throughout the house, you can see a lot of these trusses are going to require piggybacks because the trusses were too tall to transport. So the truss company will send piggyback trusses to stack on top, and they get strapped down. And here's the roof after it's decked. So decking this roof took a good week because of how big it was. And you see here, I always use 5/8 Advantechs on my shingle roofs. That's because the Advantech holds up really well to moisture. Decking a roof this big, it's going to take a week from the time we start. Whenever we put down roof decking, we want to make sure that it's not swelling and getting wonky over that week, because we framed this house in July and August, so it's going to rain almost every day in the Gainesville area. So this Advantech, they use extra strong glue that keeps water from swelling the wood, and so that's why I always use it, especially under shingles, where those imperfections are going to be a lot more obvious after the shingles are installed. And so something that's really given this house its character are the steep roof pitches. So the pitches throughout this house are a 9-12 and 12-12 pitch, which are a lot steeper than most of the roofs in Florida. So it creates, a really dramatic look. And when you couple that with, the hip roof style on almost the entire house, it creates for a very distinct look. And so here you see the roof dried in with synthetic underlayment, which is what I always use under shingles. The old school tar paper doesn't really stand up to moisture very well and rain. In that 3 week or so, time period from when we dry in the house, when we allow the trades to come in and then, finally install the shingles, the tar paper doesn't really hold up very well over that time. So I always use synthetic. And in Florida, we have to do double underlayment. So, everywhere that you see the underlayment, there's essentially 2 layers of coverage for the roof, and that holds up well, over the few weeks that it's exposed. And of course, if you ever wind up with a roof leak, it adds a little extra protection. And then we also, I always use Tyvek exterior house wrap. It's going to allow vapor through, but not moisture. So if any water does get behind your siding, it's protecting the house really well. Given that we're doing, this is a wood frame home, we want to make sure that, the wood's not, being exposed to any unnecessary moisture and rotting out the wood framing over time. And so in this house, we also did black exterior windows because the homeowner is going for a white-black contrast. As we, put siding on the house and wind up painting it, when the home's finished, you'll see this white-black contrast. So we went ahead and did black windows on this house, and I used YKK, which is a manufacturer I use often. It's a vinyl window, really, low E glass, low SHGC, low U value, really energy efficient windows. So as you walk up to the front of this house, one of the first things you're going to notice is the large porch. And again, that really contributes to that country style my clients were going for. And then as you go into the house, it's a pretty typical split floor plan, where you're kind of walking into a foyer that overlooks the great room, and we have an office on one side, a dining room on the other. And, you'll see the great room is open right to the kitchen. And then you got a nice big sliding glass door that looks out to the back porch. And so this is really popular on 2025 custom homes. This open floor plan where, you go into the house and it's all basically one big room, which a lot of clients like for entertaining and, when you have guests over, they're all kind of in one area rather than split into separate rooms throughout the house. And so you see we got a butler's pantry, a nice big butler's pantry right off the kitchen. And so now I'm going to show the master bedroom and garage wing of the house. So, we have a little hallway that leads to the garage and also leads to the laundry room, and then leads to the master bedroom as well. We've got a little half bathroom over here on this side that leads out to the back porch, kind of like a future pool bath. And so, you'll see the master bedroom here. We've got, a lot of windows. We've got a tray ceiling, so plenty of natural light that'll be coming in here. And then the tray ceiling adds, a little bit of dimension and interest to the room. And so you'll see in this master bathroom, everything's very comfortable. We've got a nice big vanity area, a really large shower. We have a separate water closet for the toilet, which is something a lot of people like to do when you've got a nice sized bathroom. And then a really big closet. So, plenty of space for, for clothing and different storage in the closet. And so that's, absolutely a nice feature that a lot of people are looking for in their houses. And there you see the 2-car garage. It's an oversized 2-car garage. That way you could easily fit 2 vehicles in the garage and then still have a little extra space for storage. And then, so coming back out into the main area, you can see, easy access to the kitchen. And then, again, the back porch opens up to the great room. We're going to have a 10-foot tall sliding glass door to make that separation, which, when it's installed, is going to be really nice and a lot of glass. And so here on the guest bedroom side of the house, and these are oversized guest bedrooms, even for a 3,200 square foot house. They're really nice sized bedrooms with nice closets, and you saw the guest bathroom there. There's plenty of space with a linen closet in the bathroom. And so, again, easy access to the great room area. So again, a pretty typical split floor plan for 2025, where you've got the master on one side with the garage and laundry room, kitchen, great room in the middle, and guest bedrooms on the other side. And so on this house, we actually have a guest suite, for a little bit more permanent guests. And so we have a sitting area combined with a bathroom and closets, and then a bedroom that has its own back porch. We're going to wind up putting a fireplace out here for them. And so this is about 2.5 months into a, 9-month build, let's say, somewhere in that ballpark. So, we still have some framing to finish up, the main part of the house. We're going to wind up having a fireplace in the great room and, coffered beams built into the great room and the office and the dining area. So there's still, framing work to do inside the house. It's really just the point where, we got the house dried in. And so my framing crew will be back this upcoming week to punch out those items. And then we're also going to check all the engineering, make sure we're, got, all the hurricane straps in place, all the walls are bolted down, all the straps are, all the king studs and everywhere where it's called for on the jacks. So, we're going to be doing that over the next week or so. And then, the trades will come in. So, well, the HVAC guys, the plumbing crew, the electricians eventually, and then we'll put siding on the exterior. So, from now until we're actually, insulating the walls and, putting sheetrock on the walls, we still have another good month of just trade work inside the house. So, we'll work on knocking that out, over the next month or so, and I'll keep you guys updated as this house progresses along.